I wonder how our lovely tea-drinking neighbors across the pond are doing.
Mandarin. The rain. Oh.
Oh, they're on the brink of a civil conflict fighting each other. Who would have thought? We did. We actually predicted this many years ago. It's called the divide and conquer agenda, as of course there's a diminishing population that is indigenous there and a brand new one that's growing and replacing the old one. And who would have thought that there would have been tensions here? As of course what we're seeing in the United Kingdom is probably going to happen to all of Europe soon, and then coming here to the United States. We're going to be talking about that, plus a lot more, all here on this independent media broadcast, as I think it's more important than ever that we should be hyper-focusing on this issue to try to prevent it from engulfing the rest of the Western world. This as Elon Musk even took to his own social media company and said, quote, "Civil war is inevitable," highlighting some of the crazy videos coming from the United Kingdom. As Ashley St. Clair says, the effects of mass migration and open borders is what's going on, as Libs of TikTok just details the utter total madness amongst racial tensions that are at an all-time low in the United Kingdom. As Alex Jones came out and said that the government has set up the country to collapse in a total police state. This is just recently a town in Yorkshire, England, descended into total chaos as people protesting some of the latest events that they were very unhappy about after 3 young children lost their lives, specifically sought out a hotel that was housing asylum seekers, aka illegal immigrants that of course were shipped into the United Kingdom, as they had open battles with the local police department there that they were able to push back. And then of course they tried to burn down the Holiday Inn, which was the immigration center, as there's multiple reports of serious injuries, a bunch of arrests, and of course a hotel that was almost burnt down. As these types of clashes are becoming more and more common in the United Kingdom, as of course many people fear just an all-out civil conflict unfolding there, which some people believe we are already on the brink of. All of course as these scattered riots could just be the beginning of a lot more riots, a lot more fighting, a lot more civil strife happening internally in the United Kingdom that has been programmed, in my opinion, has been ratcheting up, has been heating up to this larger kind of tumultuous moment that is really something that is very difficult to go back from. As of course, in response to the local English population rioting, the ever so growing Muslim population in the United Kingdom also is organizing and in some reports retaliating against some of the larger actions that are being made against them. As there's now the creation of a Muslim Defense League that is mobilizing in places like Bolton in the United Kingdom. As the UK is finding a lot of suspects with a lot of very pointy and dangerous tools on them that are of course banned. This says clearly there are a lot of tensions building up between the local population and the Muslim population in the United Kingdom, as the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom just took to the national stage to guarantee that the people creating chaos here will be held responsible for their actions. As of course, I'm kind of curious if he's going to be going after the big tech social media companies, the government there, the UN organizations, the NGOs that organized a lot of these larger kind of migrations that clearly there is some kind of civil strife about. And of course, no, he didn't, as it's pretty fair to say with the history of the United Kingdom and the way that it's treating a lot of its local citizens, that there will be a disproportionate response that, of course, will only trigger more outrage and anger from the local population there.
Be in no doubt, those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests. You will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online.
Now, the online bit was pretty interesting, as of course it's important to note here that a lot of political commentators and people also just kind of representing the facts that are inconvenient to the state have been previously politically prosecuted in the United Kingdom. As of course there's other individuals that were charged for pre-crime-like activities that the UK government deemed unsatisfactory to them and preemptively arrested people before they were able to commit any kind of potential crime. As already 90 people have been arrested, all across the United Kingdom and related to a lot of these street clashes and larger fights in the streets, as Sky News is describing these protests as protests between, quote, anti-Islamic groups and, quote, anti-racism groups. That's literally how they described what's happening here. As the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom has even just canceled his own vacation to deal with the larger tensions that are boiling up and building up in his country. As of course, let's not forget that all of this happened not because people just decided to be hateful all of a sudden, not just because people just decided to be angry at a whole group of individuals, but because there was one particular event that conveniently a lot of people aren't bringing up here or talking about. And that was an event that led to 3 little girls losing their lives, multiple others injured seriously after a knife attack from a Rwandan that sparked off this entire kind of protest, counter-protest, and now the larger clashes and street fights that we're seeing unfolding in the United Kingdom. This as organizers of some of these protests, in response to the boiling over of these tensions, or even individuals who previously were sent to solitary confinement, arrested, charged. One of them just fled the United Kingdom as he's facing contempt of court proceedings, as he was just arrested this Sunday on counter-terrorism powers, released on unconditional bail, and has since then decided to, of course, flee the United Kingdom, as he is expected to face more charges against him, as the media is accusing him of being one of the main radicalizers here, as the more that he gets punished, with some people viewing this as unjust punishment, the more he grows as an influential individual in all of these matters. This, as it's fair to say, that there's a lot of individuals stoking fear right now, as the Middle East Eye reports on how the Muslim communities are organizing, as just in, according to Sky News, mosques in England will now be offered new emergency security after several mosques in the UK have been targeted. As I think it's fair to say that immigration plays a vital role in this entire matter and wouldn't be as prevalent if the situation wasn't just as egregious as it is right now, as many NGOs and UN organizations are literally importing giant foreign populations into the United Kingdom and other places in Europe and other places in the United States, in all of the western parts of the world that are dealing with significant population decline. And historically, whenever you have a new population of individuals moving into a new territory, there's always civil strife. There's always kind of tension between the new population and the old population, as there's particular events that are played up on, and preferential treatment and tax dollars, resources, jobs, opportunities that are taken away from the local population in order to, of course, grant opportunities for the new population. And this is why we have even seen the Koch brothers weaponize immigration and previously describe how it's great for them. It's great for the multinational corporations that, of course, gets to import new labor. The cost of labor goes down. The price of housing goes up, since of course there's more people looking for homes, less homes available for the local population, and therefore that's just one example of many examples to why a lot of people are saying, hey, this situation might not be that fair, as of course there's also legal and judicial cases, specifically when it comes to the local populations being hurt by the new population that are being obfuscated, that are being ignored, that are not really talked about, as there are a couple incidences of the new population hurting the old population and getting a slap on the wrist, and other kind of egregious cases where the old population does something to offend the new one, and then they literally get thrown to jail to never come out of it ever again. This is, it's fair to say that there are some larger cultural clashes here, as there's a lot of differences between the new population and the old population, their kind of practices, their religions, their cultures, their diets, their foods, and a lot of that times, specifically with the new forms of immigration, there's not a lot of assimilation. There's not a lot of individuals that are willing to, of course, forego their old practices in order to better kind of assimilate to the practices of the territory and the country that they're in. And one of the biggest, starkest differences between some of these individuals is, of course, their view on women, women's rights, and, of course, the respect of women's bodily autonomy, as there are things like grooming gangs in the United Kingdom, that are an absolutely awful thing that also have, of course, spurred on to other places in Europe that have also opened up their borders to these NGOs and UN organizations that are influxing these huge populations into them. As statistics specifically, what happens to women in these local populations is being deliberately obfuscated to the point where people are not able to see, and if they do, are punished for, of course, calling out the obvious problems and the cultural clashes that are unfolding here that build up a lot of this strife, build up a lot of this tension that sadly is not being addressed in an open and honest way. As in Germany, politicians are even being punished after publishing statistics specifically highlighting a lot of these kind of cultural differences from Middle Eastern and African countries that do not respect women and practice that disrespect with the obfuscation and protection of the establishment. As of course, it's important to note here that populations are being played off against each other, and there are bigoted and hateful individuals on both sides of this conflict. Both of them believe that they are correct when it comes to their kind of assessments, their culture, their practices, their beliefs, and their religion. As of course, we have to try to understand this from other points of view other than just our own, as a lot of the new population believes that they're helping the sinners and the rotting culture of the West through, of course, more pure ways and intentions that, of course, is the ultimate truth to them. As it's important to note here, and we have to try to understand here that both sides of these issues believe that they're the righteous one, believe that they're doing things for the right reasons, believe that they are protecting themselves and their communities against the other that they view as the aggressor here. When in all actual reality, there are particular kind of events being played up on against these local populations to fight each other. And especially in a day and age where we have echo chambers on social media, where we have hyperbolic news coverage, when we have the obfuscation and clear prosecution of one political side and another that is promoted, paid for, and of course assisted every step of the way, there is a clear kind of injustice here that both of these groups are perceiving that are being weaponized and played up against each other. As with the current trajectory of that we're on, the new population is set to soon replace the old population. And when one group becomes a majority and another a minority and that group switches, there is a lot of problems ahead with, of course, that particular group. As you add this to the larger factors of some kind of economic strife, pain, and consequences, and you have a situation that, of course, is going to be disastrous. As there's a lot of reports of hammers and other spiky tools being used at protest. And the more victimized one group becomes and hears about it, and of course is highlighted in the media, on social media, on the corporate media, the more anger, the more tensions will brew. Now, you add that to the factor that there's also a larger fight brewing inside of the Middle East that will also divide a bunch of people, that will also piss off a bunch of people, especially in the Muslim community. And in my opinion, you have an absolute powder keg as the local populations are being replaced in the Western world, and just naturally, that's pretty chaotic in itself. Now, you add that to the larger economic strife. You add that to geopolitical tensions expanding, especially inside of the Middle East. And to me, you have an absolute recipe for disaster for not just Europe, but also for the United States. That also, through the United Nations and NGOs, is replacing the local population here. As in America, you have more of a dangerous situation since, of course, a lot of people know how to defend themselves and are more capable of doing so. Those little British blokes, they're like, poking each other. Americans have different ways of means, which creates even more of a dangerous situation, especially with how local populations are kind of turned against each other. Now, you add that to the possibility of a looming bigger conflict that's just about to pop off inside of the Middle East with the Chicago Democratic National Convention that is coming in just a few days from now, which a lot of people believe will be just as chaotic as the 1968 one. As in America, race politics is, of course, becoming more and more mainline, where we are still discussing the race and ethnicity of the current, if not replaced, Democratic nominee that a lot of people are questioning if she's black or if she's Indian, not if she's capable or actually going to be good at her job. And when you have people that are kind of hyper focused on race rather than merit, it's another kind of hallmarker of this kind of race-obsessed culture that is becoming more and more weaponized against each other. Now, you add that to the fact that in just a few days from now, we are going to have a new president of the United States and a group of Americans that are most likely going to be representing half the country that are not going to be very happy about that. Now, let's just be honest here. If Donald Trump wins, the possibility of civil unrest, especially in major urban environments in the United States, escalates dramatically. And it just takes this kind of larger pendulum swing to get out of complete control with moment after moment of just reckless violence and hatred and action against each other as fellow Americans that could also spiral us out of control and lead us down an entire pathway that is absolutely freaking disastrous. Now, you add that to the fact of the U.S. government literally having a huge track record of arming, funding, training radical Islamists, as even just recently, the U.S. government just accidentally sent the Taliban $239 million in assistance. You add that to the fact of what the United States did in Libya, in Syria, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and you really have an absolute crazy situation. You add that to what's happening in Ukraine, specifically, where a lot of the weapons, a lot of the advanced military hardware just kind of poofs in air, just goes missing, just isn't delivered. Just as the soldiers there are reporting a lack of kind of resources, as the United States keeps funneling billions and billions and billions and billions of your money there, as those weapons go missing, as the borders wide open, as governments are taking your money and using it to, of course, import a huge, large swap of new people. And yep, you're following the same kind of recipe for disaster that Europe played into, that we're playing into right now. And this is why I think Elon Musk is right. And I think civil war is inevitable. And that's a sad reality that we're all dealing with, because can't we all just frickin' get along? Right? And if you think we could get along, share this video with your friends and family members. But seriously, can we not just all get along? And it's okay to have your own religion, your own practices, as long as you follow the non-aggression principle and you don't hurt or steal or take from others. If we just had simple things like that, as I would argue, the governments here, the NGOs, the United Nations organizations that, of course, import a lot of these people, that lie to a lot of these people, that are screwed over, that are just sent into this kind of cog of the machine of the corporate international sector, as they're told to work all the jobs that pay them absolutely less than they would to the average American, as they're told, hey, we'll give you a little bit of handouts here, but then you're going to be on your own in a little bit, as we're building up and incentivizing a larger welfare system that, of course, takes from the productive, as social media is just showing one point of the larger kind of strife here. We do have to wonder, where is this all headed? And it's headed towards disaster. We should all be able to get along with each other, and I think we would if it wasn't for powerful individuals that I think are pinning up us against each other, so we fight each other instead of realizing that there's some really sinister individuals out there that are incentivizing us to do this, so we don't realize that they kind of exist. And that's just my own kind of individualistic opinion and perspective, and if you appreciated it, share it. Again, and because you do, every time you share, Atlas gets one treat. Good job, Atlas. Yeah, that's the co-host of the show here. If you appreciated this show, again, share. It really does mean a lot. We're doing something completely different. We're going to be changing things up here as an independent media organization. We're going to have a live podcast this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, all here on youtube.com/wearechange. See you there. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys sharing, and this is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on youtube.com/wearechange.